Thank you, obviously, for taking a little bit of time to join us for today's edition of RPI's Tech Talks, occurring every Friday at noon Eastern. This week, the topic is Birst, specifically understanding Birst and the data model extensions. We have a great presenter for you here today, Mr. Bo Hunt.
Okay, cool. So like Keith said, we're going to talk about Birst for a little bit today. More specifically, we're going to talk about data model extensions. So, how do we get fields that currently are not in the Birst data model? How do we get them in there? A good example of that is user fields. So that's the example we're going to use today. My name is Bo Hunt. Been in the healthcare ERP space for about 16 years. Spent the last 4 of those with RPI consulting. And like Keith said, my focus really has been on BI and analytics. So really happy to talk to you guys today and help you guys make better use of Birst. So I do have a couple slides that I'm going to show you just to give you a kind of an overview of what we're looking to accomplish, as well as kind of how data flows from FSM to Birst. So we'll go through that, and then we will break into the application, and we're going to look at how do we modify replication sets to get that data in there, and then what scripting do we need to do in Birst to actually get that to show up in the data model and on your reports. So I like to classify data model extensions into 3 different categories. So the first one, and this is what we're going to be looking at today, is what I call easy ones. This is where we're taking a business class and we're adding additional fields to that business class, whether it be user fields, maybe it's related fields, or just other fields that are already there but have not been put in the data model for Birst. So we can use the delivered functionality for that. And that's what we'll go through again today. Kind of moving up the scale of difficulty is adding a non-related field from another business class. So this is maybe where we can't use those built-in relations, but we are able to define what the join logic is. A little bit more scripting in Birst, and the most important thing to keep in mind with that is the attributes that you're trying to join into the source data needs to be have a one-to-one relationship. If you have a one-to-many, you're going to have some weird stuff happen on your reports that you're not expecting. And then the final area is, if you have a business class that at this point is currently not in the Birst data model at all, extending that in. And while it's completely possible, there's definitely a little bit more thought and planning that needs to be put into that. And I'm hoping maybe those moderate and advanced examples, that's something we can deal with in a future tech talk or webinar. So, but again, today we're gonna show you how to get started and how to get those user fields added in. So if we look at kind of how data flows through Birst or from FSM to Birst, it all happens through replication sets. If you're not familiar with replication sets, it's essentially built-in functionality within CloudSuite to allow you to get your data out of those cloud business classes or tables and push them out somewhere else. So one way that can be done is you can do flat files and push it out to an FTP. We see that a lot with interfaces. But in this case, we're using IMS to push that data out to the data lake. And data lake is kind of like your data warehouse that all of your Infor applications have access to. So we're going to get it out of CloudSuite Financials into data lake. And then there's some connection scripts that Birst uses to pick that data up out of data lake. There's a series of ETL scripts. And then eventually that data gets into the data model that we're reporting on with all of those visualizations and dashboards that you see in Birst. So when we look at what we need to accomplish to extend new fields in, essentially we first need to add those fields to the replication sets. We need to re-register those replication sets because what that does is it updates the tables in Ion with that new field information, all the metadata for it, so it can accept that data. We're going to re-replicate that. And then there's this next step is one that gets that hangs a lot of people up. And if you don't do it, you're not going to see any data in your fields. And that's to add the business class to the extension extract group. So I'll show you what that looks like. We'll go through what needs to be modified on the Birst connection and ETL scripts. And then we're going to add those fields to a custom subject area. Now, why this is important is without adding them and renaming them, your users are not going to be able to find the fields because they have these pre-tagged user field 01, user field 02 type thing. So we need to rename them so that they're logical for your users. So with that, I'm going to break out of the PowerPoint here and take you into the CloudSuite application. So this is one of our sandbox tenants, and I'm looking at our financial enterprise group because what I want to do is I want to show you the field that we want to pull out, and it's in our project dimension. So I'm going to take a look at that. I'll drill in here, and we'll just go down and look at a posting project here in the hierarchy. And I'll open that up. And if I go over to my user fields here, you can see I've got this responsible party user field. It looks like our good friend Bruce Banner's in charge of this particular project. So I think we're in good hands. So first thing we need to do though is we need to identify the name of this field. So we can see the labels for responsible party, but in this case, if we do a Control-Shift-Click, so this is just like in version 10, your old Control-Shift-O, if I Control-Shift and click on the field, it's going to give us our field info. And I can see that our field name in the business class is actually responsible party. So we'll note that. And now what we want to do is we want to start extending this. So the first step to that is we need to go out and add that field to the replication set. So we'll go out to Admin Console. And in Admin Console, when this comes up, we'll expand out Database and go into Replication. And here's all those delivered replication sets that come to feed Birst. We need to figure out which one we want to modify. So our projects falls under the GL module. So we'll go into there. And I'm going to go ahead and find my project business class. And what you'll notice, so these delivered replication sets, you can't actually make any modifications to the delivered fields. And that's a good thing. We wouldn't want to break anything downstream. You can't add new fields, you can't delete them. But if you click on the custom fields here we can add a field. And in here, if we click plus, we can either add a field that's directly on that business class, or if we qualify it with the related business class and it's a built-in relation, we can do that as well. But in this case, I just want to go ahead and add my responsible party field. The replicate name will automatically populate for you based on the field. If you wanted to call it something different, you could. I'll go ahead and save this. It's going to tell me this change will require a new schema. Are you sure? And the answer is yes, because what that does is when we send that new schema, it's going to push that out, and Data Lake will add that table to the table for projects. So I'm going to go back to replication here, and you'll see I've got a red indicator on my GL. If I hover over it, it's just reminding me that I need to do a schema registration. So I'll go ahead and I'm just going to register the out-of-date schemas. So that just pushed that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and replicate this. Now it's going to bring up a dialog box, and if I wanted to schedule this replication, I could fill out the parameters in this dialog box. But if we just want to push the replication, we can just click OK here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have a really small data set, so that's actually going to process pretty quickly. But I do want to show you how to verify that your data has made it out to that first step, which is out to the data lake. So from our mingle selector, I'm going to go into Ion Desk here. And the first thing we'll look at, if I expand my left bar and I go down to Data Catalog, if I look at object schemas, we can verify that that field came down. So here's our FSM project table. And it's going to list all of our fields. If I go to the bottom here and go to page 2, our very last field is that one that we just added. So responsible party, and there's all of our metadata for it. Now, so that's great. The schema pushed over, and we have the field there. If we want to verify if the data has made it into Data Lake yet, we can go on the Data Lake tab here, go down to Compass, And Compass is a query tool, allows you to do SQL queries against Data Lake. So I'm just going to do a quick select star from FSM project. And we'll see. This may have already processed. We'll take a look and see if my values have populated for that responsible party field. So in Data Lake, it restructures everything is displayed or rendered in alphabetical order from a field perspective. So let me go over here for my responsible party. Oh, there it is. And we can see we've got our data populated in here. So we've got all our good Marvel characters in here responsible for our projects. Okay, so data's in Data Lake. We now need to get it over into Birst. So I'm gonna jump over to the Birst application.
Hey, Bo, can I interrupt you with a quick question here? So everything we've seen, that's just standard CloudSuite functionality for the replication sets.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And what we're about to see, does that apply to Birst Basic or just Birst Enterprise?
So the data model extension is available with the Birst for CloudSuite license. So that's the lowest level licensing that you get with Birst, and that is something that's available. So regardless of if you've upgraded your license to the professional or enterprise, you will have the ability to do these data model extensions.
Thank you, Bo.
Yep, absolutely, great question. Okay, so if you're not familiar, it can be a little intimidating at first when you go out to Birst. You have a series of spaces here, and we have a particularly long tenant name, so it makes it a little difficult to see the different space names. But if you hover over it, it will give you a pop-up. What we're looking for is this one right here, this CSF model extension. So I'm going to select that. And the very first thing I'm going to do, so it drops us off here in the modeler. And there's 3 steps to modeling: connect, prepare, and relate. We're going to be working in the connect and prepare sections. But in connect, the first thing we want to do is we want to add the project business class to our extract group. And what the extract groups are is basically in order to cut down the time it takes to reload and refresh data in Birst, it selectively loads data. So I like to add it. You only need to add it to one of these 3, but I like to add it to the extract group for initial process. So if I click that, and then I click my data lake connection, you can see out of the box, accounting entity is the only extension business class that's turned on by default. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to select my project. And again, what this is doing is when we run orchestration, now Birst is going to say, hey, I'm going to process this table here because I'm looking for data model extensions. So we'll save that. Next thing I need to do is still here within Connect. I'm going to go into my data lake connection. And these are all of my connection queries. So these are all saved queries that are pulling data from Ion Data Lake. And these are predefined, so you'll have these already built out just by having Birst provisioned. I'm going to go down though because I want to modify my project extension because I want to bring in that responsible party field. So I'm going to click the little arrow here, click edit. And what we're presented with, this is the SQL query that's running against Data Lake. And what's coming in by default is just our key fields that are needed to relate this data to the rest of the data model. So what we need to do is we need to add our responsible party field. So I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'll put responsible party here, if I could spell. And what you'll notice, so right now you see just those key fields come in. When I save this, it's going to bring in that new responsible field, a party field in addition, and we can see our values are coming in. This data is not quite in the import tables though yet, because this is just a preview. So we do want to click this import CSF. This is doing the same thing as when you do an orchestration job and it's doing the extract routine. We're just manually kicking that off here from within Pronto. So like I said, this is a pretty small data set. This usually takes about 30, 40 seconds. So while we're waiting on that, Keith, do we happen to have any questions that have come in?
No other questions, but I want to encourage anyone that has them that you can just type them into that questions module on the GoToMeeting pop-up, and we will ask.
Excellent. So again, just to kind of reiterate what we're doing, we just updated the script that's pulling data into Birst kind of import or staging table area. And then once this completes, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into the first set of the ETL scripts to actually model that data in. So that completed. I'll go here now to prepare. And we're presented with a similar set of scripts. If I scroll down, I'll see that one of the source scripts we have is that FSM project extension that we just added our responsible party to. But then there's a scripted source that comes off of that, this PS projects. And again, if you're adding data to one of your other dimensions, you're going to want to use the appropriate extension script. But for projects, we want this PS projects. I'll click edit on that. And we're presented with a similar thing. So we have a SQL query that's pulling data in. This is pulling it from that staging table that we just populated. So similar to what we did before, I'm going to add a comma there, and then I'm going to put in my project.responsible party. And that's going to pull the data in. And then the bottom section of this is some BQL scripting that does the mapping. And what we have delivered, so this is kind of the delivered data model extensibility, is for every extension business class, so in this case it's project, we have 20 string user fields that are predefined. And see what I was talking about, they're not very intuitive. They're labeled, they're placeholders. So we have 20 string user fields, we have 5 date user fields, 5 integer, and 5 number. So this one is definitely a string field. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my field name here. Oops, need a closing. So I'll copy that down and map that in essentially. We'll do a quick validate, make sure it's happy. It's happy with that, and we'll click save. So now we can see in this connection script, we also, if I scroll over here and I find my string user field 01, it's now being populated with our responsible party. There's our Avengers friends. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do, we basically have the modeling done. We need to now run an orchestration routine to bring that data in, because again, we're just kind of dealing with sample sets so far. So I clicked, what I did to get here is I clicked the 3 little lines, went down to the admin, and then orchestration. So this is where all your regular orchestration jobs are that you run, that you probably schedule every night or periodically through the day. We could certainly do the regular GL extract and process. In this environment, that takes about 40 minutes though. So what I like to do is I've created a custom routine here that only processes the data model extensions, and it runs much quicker. In this environment, it runs pretty quick. I've seen in customer environments, instead of taking 40 minutes to 2 hours, this usually will run in about 15 or 20 minutes. So if you're doing development and you just want to verify that your extensions came in, this is a nice little routine. And if you'd like, I can share the details for this of what the actual extraction steps are. Just email questions@rpic.com. That's something we can definitely get over to you. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off though. And the final step really that we need to do, like I mentioned, having a field in there called project.stringUserField01 is really not very useful for our end users. So we're going to go into and rename that field in the data model. Now everything we've done so far has been in the new HTML5 interface. What we're going to need to do for this though, this is one of the pieces of functionality that's in the old Flash admin. So I'm going to go to my consumer space, because that's where our subject area is. I'm going to go into the admin, and we'll get a nice little warning. So Flash, as a lot of you are aware, end of support on that is end of this year. So Infor is pushing to get the remaining functionality that's still in the classic admin here over into the HTML5 admin. So that should be coming soon. But for right now, we do still need to do this in the classic admin. So I'm going to go into Manage Access here. And then I'm going to go to Custom Subject Areas. And this interface is a little sluggish. I'm hoping I may need to refresh my browser. Sometimes when I get that error in here, it hangs up. But let's see if it returns my subject area.
I do have a couple of questions, Bo, while you're waiting here.
Perfect.
One is, are there any limitations as to the number of user fields that can be replicated to Birst?
So the short answer to that is there is with the delivered extensions. If we're using that, sorry, I'm just going to restart my browser here so I can get us back in. But if you're using the functionality that we're looking at here, it's a hard cut at 35 fields, and it is 20 string fields, 5 integer, 5 number, and 5 date fields. So that is kind of our cutoff right now. And now that's not that, but that is per dimension. So you can have 35 extensions for project, 35 extensions for account, so on and so forth.
So I know we're focused on dimensions here, but what about fields for business classes not listed in that model ext yet? For example, item location.
So those are going to be ones that are going to fall into what I classified as advanced earlier. Even though maybe they're business classes that are delivered, they're not delivered in that extensibility functionality. So that's where we would have to go back and actually model them all the way in. So I think Infor, they wanted to take a first stab at getting at those areas that there was lots of user field activity. So, the GL in CloudSuite is ripe for that because, that's a lot of the selling point of the GL is just how customizable it is. So I know they wanted to go after that first. So I believe they're going to be adding more to the extensions, so you'll have more business classes available. But for right now, there is a little bit more that's needed if you're extending outside of those delivered extension business classes. Any other questions coming in, Keith?
Not yet, but I encourage everyone to keep them coming.
Well, we're almost done.
I'm waiting for them to stump you here. Something really hard.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm waiting for them to stump you with something hard.
I like to be stumped. That's when I start learning stuff. All right, so let's see if this is going to work for us this time. Yeah, I think we're in good shape. Okay, so the way that this works, it takes a second to come up, but we're going to have our subject areas over here. And the subject areas are basically kind of like an organization of the fields in the data model. There's a default subject area, which that's where kind of every single field in the data model is. And then there's these breakouts. So there's a global ledger one. And this is what your users see when they're building reports. This is kind of what they're able to browse. So I'm going to take the global ledger one, drag it over here to the right, and we're going to edit it. I'm going to expand out my default subject area, and I'm going to go down to projects. And here's all my project fields. So you can see here's those date user fields. And like I said, these are already in the default subject area out of the gate. And there's our string user field one. Over on the right, I'm going to scroll down to projects. Oops, did I pass it? There we go. So here's my projects subject area. So I'm going to take that string user field one, drag it over into projects. It's now in here. So here's my projects, string user field one. I'm going to double click it, and now I can rename it whatever I want. So we'll call it responsible party. We will save that, and I'll get a weird error. So when I save this, I get an error saying you can't save the custom area until one or more groups have been set. It's kind of a weird error because what it's looking for is if I double click this, it's wanting to make sure that we have at least one user group assigned to this. And by default, the users one is already assigned. So what I find is if after you do this, if you just open up, if you double click on your subject area header, hit save, you can then save that. All right, so we're done. What I do want to do though is I want to show you really quick. I'm gonna go back into Birst and I'm gonna go into Visualizer just to show you that new field is in there as we named it, and we'll drag it onto our report real quick. All right, so we'll go into the consumer space here. We'll go into the Visualizer tool, which is where we put together all of our dashboard content. And I'm going to switch this real quick. I'm going to just do a table type report. And I'm going to browse my global ledger subject area. So again, this is what we were editing when we were managing that subject area. I'm going to go down to projects. And if I scroll down to the bottom, there's my responsible party field. We can see my values come in, and then if I bring in a project description and project, we can see how those are assigned to my posting level projects. So that's it. Again, as long as you're staying within kind of the delivered functionality, this is a very simple, quick process. If you're looking for some more advanced stuff, that's definitely stuff that the RPI can help you with. Or if you just have questions about this, definitely I'd say encourage you to reach out to us at questions.rpic.com, and we'd be happy to work with you.
So I do have another question here, Bo, and again, I encourage you guys to get in whatever you got. Do transaction user fields follow the same process?
They do, but again, there's a limited set of extension fields around transactions. I know for a fact.
Are they different?
Yeah, I know there's one for like GL transaction detail because I've done some extensions there, but we can take a look real quick. So we do have, yeah, so there's a GL transaction detail that's delivered. I think that's the only one. They pretty much focused on the GL side for this first run of data model extension.
Is it your impression, and obviously we don't speak for N4, but is it your impression that they are adding those? Yeah.
They definitely are. I would say right now their push, they have to get the Flash functionality vetted out. So right. I know from a development standpoint, that's their focus right now. But they definitely are looking, had that conversation. They're definitely looking to extend out the extensions as well.